You're listening to Safety Corner, powered by TCL and S1. For workers, by workers. Online and in-person health and safety programs and training available in 10 plus languages: English, French, Portuguese, Italian, Russian, Tagalog, Turkish, Arabic, and Chinese. Reach out to them at www.mys1.ca and DM them at my_S1 for more information. Phil, welcome back, man.
Hey.
Like I said,
Thanks.
I'm enjoying these safety shows because I guarantee you I'm going to learn something new on every single episode.
I'm going to make sure you learn something, Manny. 100%.
Then it's going to be my duty to get on job sites and share what I learned, because that's all I've ever done with this show.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, listen, sharing is key. Transfer of information, whether it's in the skilled trades or whether it's safety or whether it's anything else, transferring it to the next generation, transferring it to the people around you and beside you. It's critical.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to pass this stuff on. I think last time we were on the show, you asked one of the questions, what job wouldn't you want to do? And, paramedic for me is probably the top one, right?
I wouldn't be able to.
No, I wouldn't. Even with the MOL, you see enough blood and guts.
You're seeing a bunch too.
Oh, I've seen more than I wanted to.
On this show, what are we going to dive into this one?
Today, we are diving into workplace parties. Who, what, where, when, why, and how, with everything.
You talking about beer and pizza?
What?
Beer and pizza parties. Workplace parties? Or are you talking about people involved?
I see where you're going, Manny.
Beer and pizza. I get it. No, workplace parties.
Workplace parties.
I get it.
Who are the players and how do they apply? So I guess it's good to understand who the players are. Right, so just to break it down, we have an owner. So this can be as simple as the owner of the roads, and they hire a constructor to fix all the roads, or it can be the owner of a house that hires contractors to come in and do work. We have the constructor, the person, the organization who undertakes a project for an owner. The constructor is the organization that hires the additional trades to perform work at that construction project.
Yep.
We have suppliers. It can be a rental company that drops off a bin on your site. It can be the manufacturer or equipment supplier. We rent out swing stages. We actually had a fatality last week at Ontario Place for Herc Rentals. They were delivering an elevated work platform to the project. And I wasn't there, obviously, but from what we hear, they were unloading the elevated work platform and it came off the flatbed of the truck. The worker was in the elevated work platform. When it collapsed, he got crushed.
Wow.
Right?
And that was just a delivery of a piece of machinery. That was just
a delivery of a piece. And from what I heard, there's a couple of mixed things, but from what I heard, it was neither the construction projects, because there's multiple constructors happening down there at Ontario Place. It was actually the filming of a show down there. I think it's called Blue Bloods or something.
Okay.
And that elevated work platform was part of the setup or something along those lines. Don't quote me on any of that.
But that still involves Ministry of Labor.
That is still a worker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll depend on if it's an inspector that's from the construction side or from the industrial side. Right? It kind of depends on the scenario and the settings.
Do they ever do a joint?
Yeah, it's happened.
Okay.
It's happened for sure. But even like me, I was trained in construction and I had experience in industrial and trained in some of the industrial just because I spoke languages. So they sent me, Portuguese. Okay, send the Portuguese inspector. Yeah. Hey, it's Italian. I'll send that guy, or the Spanish. Yeah. Right. So because I spoke languages, I got tossed on a lot of different investigations. Even in the farming sector, I've done a couple of investigations. I think one of them was a migrant worker lost his finger picking onions and in a machine.
Oh.
That one was one of my first ones.
Okay.
But anyways, back to workplace parties, because we're going to get sidetracked here, Manny, and we want to cover
So I mean,
stuff.
just the definition of an owner is the trustee, the receiver, mortgage and possession, basically whoever's on the deed. Like this is what's going on.
The city of Toronto could be is an owner.
Legal ownership. That's what it is, right? Then construction is like the way you defined it, and then supplier. Nobody ever thinks about that. I remember I had a site, and MOL showed up just as deliveries were being made, and all of a sudden she pointed out that all the people that were delivering the hardwood had no PPE whatsoever, and they were not allowed on the site.
Are they workers?
They were
Yes.
They were from the supplier delivering the material to the job site.
A worker.
A worker.
A worker.
So she clearly
on a
defined it. She was nice
construction
about
project.
it, and she said to me, "They're not allowed on this site until the PPE shows up, because they obviously didn't have it in their truck." And then I contacted the business and I said, "You need PPE." They didn't have any at all. So what happened in that situation is our workers had to bring in all that material to the site because we had all of our PPE. And that became a discussion with the supplier later on.
Yeah. No, some of these suppliers.
They show up in running shoes, no hard hats at all.
I've seen dump truck drivers show up in sandals.
Really?
I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of crazy shit, man.
Okay, so back to employer now.
An employer, a person who employs one or more workers or contracts for the services for one or more workers, and includes a contractor, subcontractor, performs work or supplies services, and a contractor or subcontractor who undertakes with an owner, constructor, contractor, or subcontractor to perform work or supply services.
Wow. Okay.
I know that one's a mouthful, but basically,
But it defines it.
Yeah, it defines it. Then we have a health and safety rep, a person who's selected by their peers and represents the interests of workers with regards to health and safety in the workplace. Again, all of these workplace parties, definitions, you find them all in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So this is very top level explanatory information.
But the health and safety rep, at what stages is it? 10 employees that you need one?
Six workers or more for a health and safety rep on a project.
That has to be on that project, associated with that project, and they're in charge of everybody's.
They're not in charge. So the health and safety rep is really a bridge between the workers and management. Meaning, I'm a worker, I have issues with safety, this is dangerous, this is this and that. I don't feel comfortable going to talk to management. So I'm going to tell the health and safety rep, and that rep is the bridge to help communication between the two.
6 or more.
6 or more.
Okay.
JHSC, Joint Health and Safety Committee. This is for workplaces that have 20 or more workers.
Okay.
Okay. And basically, it's a group of manager and worker reps. And basically, issues get brought to this Joint Health and Safety Committee, and they're responsible for kind of solving the problems.
When did the word supervisor come in? When did that start coming in?
So that's a good question. Supervisor, well, maybe.
No, supervisor.
I've never heard of that one.
You never heard of that one, the supervisor? I've heard that one because they're basically the one that doesn't really do anything, but that's their duty. So I've heard a lot of guys call it that. But I mean, I'm trying to figure out when that started showing up on site, right? But that's it.
I don't
But the
know,
supervisor. Let's go to the legitimate version of that.
So this is an important distinction that everyone, as an employer, as an owner, you need to understand. Inside the Occupational Health and Safety Act, there is no section that talks about a foreman. Okay, we've heard that term, foreman. I'm a foreman for this crew. I'm a foreman.
There's no really?
That does not exist.
It's a supervisor.
You are a supervisor.
You're not a foreman. So what is a foreman?
I don't know. Made up word that the construction industry uses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fuck, I love these shows, man. I'm learning shit all the time.
Yeah, so the law does not recognize what a foreman, foreperson, whatever politically
But
correct.
a supervisor they recognize.
Yes.
A person who has charge of workplace or authority over a worker.
A worker.
One. Any.
All right. So construction projects are required to have supervisors.
Yes.
Crews are required to have supervisors. I think the cutoff point or the starting point is 5 or more. So if you have 5 or more workers, and I know some of you safety guys out there, Phil doesn't even know. Hey man, I know so many regulations and I forget so many things sometimes.
Listen, man, we're just stirring the pot here. So it's just like, listen, you want to correct us? Send us a message.
No.
Send us the actual quote and the literature. Yeah.
100%. I stand to be corrected on any of the things I say, and some of the things I already forgot because these regulations are massive. But a supervisor, a person who has charge of a workplace authority over worker. So it can be, it's like project manager. There's no such thing as a project manager in the act. You're just another supervisor.
So there's no such thing as a PM?
No. Under the defined laws, no. You're just a supervisor. You're a supervisor of a bunch of supervisors who supervise a bunch of workers.
So where does this is just construction just dictating what this is.
This is the act.
No, but this is what the construction industry has designed on their own. They started creating these titles for themselves.
Yeah, and it could be it came from the States. It could be just old
be whatever,
terminology.
yeah. Okay.
You know, like construction has its own lingo, and you know, you start using some of this lingo just because you pick it up. But again, a foreman is a supervisor.
Subcontractor.
Is an employer or self-employed who is hired to perform work on a portion of an existing contract by a constructor or other employer.
Makes sense. We all know
Right?
what that is.
That's straightforward.
Okay.
And then a worker.
Wow. Workers got 5 points. Or are there more? Next slide or no? It's just 5 points?
Just this slide.
A worker has 5 points. Okay,
Right,
go ahead.
So what is
shoot.
a worker?
Yeah.
Worker means any of the following, but does not include an inmate. So if you're in jail and you're working whatever you're doing,
You're not a worker.
you're not a worker. Okay? Inmate of a correctional institution or a like institution or facility who participates inside the institution or facility in a work project or rehabilitation program. So you don't count as a worker, meaning your rights as a worker do
They're
not
not.
apply. You want to refuse work while you're in jail? Nobody cares. I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So it doesn't include an inmate. Next, a person who performs work or supplies services for monetary compensation.
The exchange of. Okay.
Right? I provide you a service, you give me monetary compensation.
It doesn't mean a dollar value. It just something that has value. Okay.
You could be bartering, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
You're bartering your services in exchange for something else. 2, a secondary school student who performs work or supplies services for no monetary compensation under a work experience program authorized by the school board that operates the school in which the student is enrolled.
Co-op.
Correct.
They're a worker.
Yep.
Got it. Which makes sense because they're on a site, they're taking orders, and they're performing tasks.
The rules apply to them.
Yes, the rules apply to them. Okay, totally. Number 3.
3, a person who performs work or supplies services for no monetary compensation under a program approved by a college of applied arts and technology, university, or other post-secondary institution.
So the same thing, just different level of school.
Yep.
Okay.
4, a person who receives training from an employer, but who, under the Employment Standards Act, is not an employee for the purposes of the Act because the conditions set out in subsection 1-2 of that Act have been met.
So someone who's in a probation period. But it's still applicable because they're part of the 1 or 2, which means they're providing monetary services and they're also a student learning. Yes or no?
Maybe a better example is I volunteer at a food bank. They still teach me some information, but
They're still a worker. Are they a worker or no?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Person who receives training from an employer, but under the Employment Standards Act is not an employee for the purposes of the Act because the conditions set out in subsection 1 and 2.
Yeah, but it's like a volunteering position.
In this case, you'd have to take it to the Employment Standards Act and go look at
and
these
then review
regulations.
at that point. And I'm pretty sure there's a note there regarding volunteers or something like that, right?
And then 5, such other persons as may be prescribed who perform work or supply services to an employer for no monetary compensation.
For work or supply services. So no money's being exchanged, and you're still considered a worker. Is that not contradictory to point 1?
I feel like it is.
But that's exactly where
This is taken straight out of the Act.
So I don't understand that. That's a contradiction to 1. I think.
Such other persons as may be prescribed who perform work or supply services to an employer for no monetary
But
compensation.
look, number 1 is a person who performs work or supplies services for monetary. Yeah. It's the opposite of that. I don't understand that.
It's that component that says may be prescribed.
Maybe prescribed.
So you'd have to see a scenario where
you're asked to do something.
No, if I'm still getting paid, I'm still a worker.
That's a question mark. Okay.
Right?
All right. No problem at all.
This might be something for one of our followers or viewers to kind of chime in and
I agree with you. It's that word prescribed.
Yeah, and listen, and this happens a lot in safety where you read a regulation or you read something and you look at it and you're like, okay, what scenario would this apply in? How would this apply? And fortunately for me, WhatsApp chat groups of former MOL inspectors and stuff, when I have questions, which I do, I'll throw it in there. Hey guys, what do you guys think of this? What's the interpretation of that? What's this? Because, man, in my head, a worker is someone that gets paid.
Yeah.
And a volunteer is someone that's not getting paid.
Yeah.
I try to keep it simple and explanatory.
I'm curious about that myself. I wouldn't mind taking a look and trying to figure out what that is.
There's a lot of sections in the Act and the regs that have like this applies, this applies, this applies. But if this applies, it's because this other section here
Yes.
did not apply. And so you got to kind of do a bit of connect the dots in terms of identifying.
Which is
what.
point number 4, right? Where it goes back to subsection 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, one thing's for sure. There's a lot of different relationships between employers and students, workers, trainees, some of these other OYAP or apprenticeship programs and stuff. There's, I guess, various degrees of what a worker or what is obviously classified as a worker, right? But one thing's for sure, an inmate's not a worker. Right?
That's a different story.
But now I'm working illegally and I'm, I have no documents, no nothing, and I'm a volunteer maybe. Like there's all kinds of little ways that people try to address some of these things or skirt some of these issues. But to keep it simple for everybody, a worker is someone that's getting paid or receives monetary compensation, and a volunteer is a volunteer.
Well, it's great that they say monetary compensation because there is a lot of bartering going on that this will happen, but that's still an exchange of money services.
Well, that's the way it reads.
That's the definition, right? All right, so moving on.
So in an effort not to bore the shit out of everybody.
I'm not bored. I'm learning shit.
In an effort not to bore everybody, we wanted to put up one of our videos, or not.
I think a lot of people are familiar with this video.
This video was huge. I can't remember if this happened a year ago or 2 years ago. It might have been during the whole COVID thing.
I think it was maybe a little bit more than 2 years, to be honest. I think so. But everybody, it made the global rounds, right?
Rounds. This video did rounds.
And too bad the target was Toronto.
Why was it a target?
Well, I just don't like seeing all this right in our backyard. But that's what we're trying to do here. It shouldn't be happening.
Whether you like it or don't like it, it's happening.
Look, I see the Royal Thompson Hall right there. That's basically King Street. I see that right there.
For example, our Instagram page shows a lot of things that are happening on construction projects across the world, but Toronto, a lot of things that get sent to us. We posted yesterday, I don't know, our story, where there was a gas contact or a gas line strike, and they had to evacuate the entire construction site.
I saw that post. Everybody's standing
post?
around there.
Yeah.
And I sent you a message, long weekend.
This stuff never makes the news.
No.
Nobody ever hears about these things. It's always rumors in our industry. Oh, did you hear what happened to that guy? Oh, did you hear what happened on that site? Oh, did you? Right? And I think with our Instagram, with this podcast, part of it is shining some light on some of the crazy shit that happens on job sites, because we look at some of these videos. Oh, that's a third world country. That will never happen here.
I know.
No, there's just maybe 1 or 2 degrees separation variation to it happening here.
Yep.
Right. But again, this scenario, the way it happened, I've never seen this happen in my life. So what happened
What
was,
do you know about this one? What did you factually know about this one?
So what I learned was, so first this video got sent to us, DM'd us. Phil, you won't believe the crazy shit that happened on our site today. And when I saw, I was like, holy shit. You mind if I post it? No, go right ahead, post it. Boom, post it. So we posted it and it started catching a lot of views. And then Six Buzz, I don't know if you know, Six Buzz on Instagram and stuff. They caught it, and I think I got something like 5 million views. It blew up. And then it got picked up by news agencies, CBC, I think Global. So they ended up contacting me. I started receiving emails and DMs. Hey, this is this news agency. We'd like to interview you on this and that. I wasn't there. I just posted the video.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Can I speak to what specifically happened on that job site? No. I can take some guesses here. I've been around the block long enough to kind of figure out what happened here.
So for people that are not watching, they're just listening, but basically it's a video of a worker who's hanging.
So this worker got caught up in the tagline of a load.
Yeah.
This load got raised, and don't quote me because this happened a while ago, either 25 stories or 30 stories in the air, with this worker stuck to the tagline. And this is the video of that worker going for a ride up and then coming for a ride back down. Fortunately, this worker did not die. But, as a safety professional, you want to avoid something like this again, right? So you take the specifics of that investigation. What happened? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. You would take that, look at it, and say, okay, how are we going to prevent this, right? The thing that boggles me the most about this case is how did this worker, and this is a job site that must have at least 100 workers on it, it is a high-rise project. How did this worker get 10 feet in the air screaming and nobody saw or heard him?
From my understanding, on every single floor of an active construction high-rise project, there's more than one worker on each floor.
Well,
at any given time.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, majority
of it, right?
Depends on what work is taking place.
Yeah,
but
the odds are, but basically, like, you can play that, right? The video?
Yeah, let me play it. It's yeah.
So there he is. He's probably about, I would say, 20 feet hanging from the actual load.
Yeah.
And he's just hanging by his arms, right?
His arm's stuck in that tagline somehow.
How the fuck did this happen? Holy fucking Jesus Christ. Is there a swamper there? Like, somebody tell him to stop now before he gets crushed by this fucking... Stop! Stop!
Now, I don't know the crane op world. Is there not a walkie? Is there not communication?
So when it comes down to hoisting and rigging and swampers, two-way communication with the crane operator is required, right? You imagine you're sitting in a little glass box, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 stories, I don't know, in the air. How do you see what's happening on the ground, right? So you have the swamper that's responsible for doing the hoisting and rigging, setting up that load, making sure it's secured. And now I don't know the specifics. I don't know if this worker was the swamper, or if this worker was walking by and got tangled up. It's kind of one of those.
We don't know the whole thing.
Well, you don't know the whole thing. You don't know all the specifics, right? Only a real detailed investigation would show.
And that's what I'm curious about. I'm really curious about what was the extent of the investigation after that.
So whenever there's an incident that's reportable to the Ministry of Labor, an investigation follows up. So a critical incident, other reportable incidents could be sudden inrush of water, for example, failure of some type of structural loads or something, structural walls. There's a variety there. There's a list of notifiable incidents, and it's actually expanded a bit. But the investigation will start with, then the point of the investigation is who, what, where, when, why, and how. Yeah. And just like any other investigation, who were the players? What were they doing? What was taking place at that time of the incident? You'll speak to this worker. The investigator guaranteed 100% spoke to this worker, right? And during some of my investigations, you talk to the injured worker. If there's an injured worker, if it's a fatality, obviously you can't ask that person. But the investigation by the Ministry of Labor, basically, they'll start with the worker, they'll start with the supervisor, they'll start with witnesses, they'll look at the load, they'll look at the machinery, they'll look at the equipment. The Ministry of Labor has a wide variety of resources, from hygienists to engineers to whatever, and they'll pull the resources they need to conduct this investigation, right? And identify any contraventions, right? Was there a contravention here?
Well, the thing is, it's so public, the video. Mm-hmm. I would love to see the investigation so public too. I'd like to know everything that was done.
Well, I'm glad that you asked that, because on our next episode, we're going to look at the results of an investigation.
Of a different investigation,
of
not
course.
This one. Because this one's ongoing, as far as you know?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. Again, finding a contravention is what the key
that's
is.
the problem, is that, obviously this makes the rounds, and obviously the media, news outlets get back, and I'll dispute the fact that CBC is actually a news platform. It's not. That's a different story. But the thing is, why aren't these companies going in there and going, by the way, remember that video of that worker that was hanging from there? Here's the results. A, B, C, all the way to the end there. This is what happened. The company got fined, Super got fined, whatever. I want to know that. That should be public record.
It is.
But it should be publicly announced on site, or go on social media. And it should be referenced, right?
The Ministry of Labor conducts their investigations, puts forward recommended charges to some of these workplace parties, if any, or just a few, depending on what the evidence is, what the contributing factors are, what led up to this fatality, for example, or whatever it may be. They'll take all that information, make the recommendations, pass it off on, it gets signed off by managers and directors, and it gets passed on to the Ministry of Attorney General, the lawyers for the government. And based on the evidence, they'll go ahead and conduct the case. Like they'll put the case forward, right? And then away we go. Charges are laid. See you in court.
At what point, Phil, does it become criminal? Is it just at a fatality situation?
So this might actually be a whole other episode.
No, it will be another, but we'll just plant the seed for that. But I mean, because I know that you mentioned it on previous shows when you guys were all together on the round table, that at some point it does become criminal charges.
So criminal negligence causing death.
Yes.
I'm a drunk driver. I drive my car. I killed X amount of people. I'm charged criminally negligence causing death. That never used to apply to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. There is a section there that deals with fines and up to a year in jail, but not criminal. So one thing we need to understand, with any regulation, with the laws, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, if you're an employer or a supervisor or a worker and you are charged, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
Okay.
Okay. You are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. The onus is on you, the defendant, to prove. Okay. The onus is not on the enforcement agency versus, or in the lawyers, for example.
Yeah.
So versus criminal. The Crown has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed this offense.
Yeah.
Right? So a majority of cases that fall under the construction regulations, Occupational Health and Safety Act, they just get pleaded out. Why? Because you're guilty. This guy fell from there. This worker is dead.
They just get
Contravention
pleaded
happens.
out?
Yeah, pleading out happens a lot. Right?
Pay a fine, company moves on.
Yeah. Right. That's kind of, and we can look at how our judicial system works and how it's applied, and some questions regarding, what's fair or what's just. But in terms of the law, when it comes to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you're guilty until proven innocent. Right. So the worker fell. Well, there's a contravention there. He wasn't tied off. Or there's no guardrails.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? Oh, no, we had guardrails. He was tied off. If he did, then he wouldn't be dead. Right? So you're already in contravention. You're already guilty of failing to comply with or failing to ensure that this worker was adequately protected by falls by a means of fall protection, for example. All right? So when it comes to criminality, the Metron case, which was my case, me and Guy's case, I want to make sure it's very clear. It's not just my case. The Ministry of Labor's case, I just so happened to be the investigating officer that answered the pager at 4:30.
Okay.
It was a pager. Beep, beep, beep.
Might want to get rid of that one.
On Christmas Eve. Oh, here we go. Pagers are bad now. So that case was the first case where this law that they had passed that dealt with a mining disaster, and they were negligence and it caused a bunch of deaths. They couldn't do anything. The police couldn't do anything. So they ended up passing a law with criminal negligence. I don't know the exact specifics. It happened such a long time ago. We can pull it up. Maybe someone can DM us a little bit more specifics. I'm sure some of my colleagues will say, "Hey, Phil, you don't remember here?"
Let them bring it up. I mean, the whole point is that we want to bring it up and discuss it.
I invite any safety professional to come to this show.
And anybody's got any insight, I don't want hearsay. I don't want bullshit about this particular video about the crane and hanging there. But if anybody's got some real insight about what's going on or attached to that, keep on bringing it in because we want to discuss it.
Sure, we want to discuss it all. But the Metron case was the first test of this new law, criminal negligence, and the supervisor in that case ended up getting 3.5 years in jail, prison. Right? 3.5 years, 4 guys dead. I don't know.
It's not right, in my opinion, but it's something.
The owner walked away. Some fines.
Because, insulation, right? And I'm not talking about job site.
Listen, this is also the nature of the beast. We got shell companies go down, another company goes up.
Exactly.
As a Ministry of Labor officer on some of these investigations, you cross paths with areas of human rights and trafficking. You cross paths with human exploitation. You cross paths with, finance and the flow of money and which way the flow of money is going. And a lot of these investigations, you want to find out who has the most responsibility or the most duties and responsibilities. A lot of it's determined by the flow of money.
It's kind of, we got to wrap this one up, and it's, in my opinion, there's more effort being made to protect the people at the top from, I guess, persecution by the way of how they're setting up corporations and how they set up the system, and the fall of the responsibility keeps on falling further and further down. So if something like this happens, it's insulated by the top.
One thing's for sure, the big constructors know the different games to play.
Yeah, that's where
the
I'm going
big constructors can afford the very high priced lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. A small business, 5 workers, 10 workers, a lawyer for occupational health and safety at least easily starts at $600 an hour. A good one.
You're easily into 6 figures is what it's going to cost you, right?
Easily. And in the future show, and maybe the next show, we can take a look at some cases that have gone through the court system where companies were fined.
I definitely want to
And
do
it will highlight exactly the instances or the contributing factors that led up. It'll identify the regulations that were contravened, who was charged. It names it all. The company
It's all public record.
Just go to the Ministry of Labor
It's
website.
as simple as that,
Just
right?
Google MOL court bulletins.
It's all out there.
It's there.
Right. So we can discuss it. We can discuss what's going on. Ongoing stuff is a different story. But yeah, this is fascinating. Like, it's not fascinating in the sense that I'm just learning about this in the whole industry, and I want to try to reduce all these factors. Like, we shouldn't be seeing more of those kinds of situations, right?
The reality is this: the things that I've experienced, my colleagues have experienced, it's not well known to people within the industry, right? Some of the things, the investigations, the results of these investigations, some of the politics that go into some of these investigations, some of the people that you're charging, So, yes, it's good to highlight exactly what's happening, but I think it's important for listeners, followers, viewers to understand the whole process. You're a company, you've had an incident, the MOL does their investigation, they lay the charges, it goes to court, you get fined, this is the sentencing, right? Let's see what it is from beginning to end. You see a lot of these things, worker died on a job site, change the channel, you never hear about it again.
Oh no, it's the rubbernecking thing. It just makes you a better driver.
You never hear about it again. And a lot of times when I talk to employers and I do training, etc., I bring up some of these cases because why? It's important to learn about the past. It's important to learn about previous things. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
No.
You know what I mean? This isn't new. A fall in Ontario is the same as a fall in British Columbia, is the same as a fall in Newfoundland. Yep. The regulation might change. Instead of 8 feet, tie off at 10 feet, or instead of 10 feet, tie off at 12 feet, or whatever it may be. A fall's a fall. And the way you protect yourself against that fall is standard all across the board. Yeah. Either you're tying off or you're going to put some type of physical barrier that's going to stop you from falling.
But Phil, to be honest, like, the truth of the matter is that if you do have more constructors, more tradespeople, more workers conscious of this and being aware of this, and making sure that all of their brothers and sisters that are on the job site are doing the same and protecting each other,
sure,
the likelihood of you getting into these scenarios where there is going to be a loss of life dramatically drops.
Sure. Again, just always, I like to always compare it to an analogy or, driving. If everyone had the best driver's license, and if everyone was following every single rule and everybody made their exact stop, and right, would we have motor vehicle incidents? Would we have these? It
would be reduced, but it's not going to be eliminated.
No, you always have inclement weather. You always have human factors. You always have acts of God, right? But again, 95, maybe, I don't know, just to throw just on my experience, I'll say every single fatality investigation I've done could have been avoided.
I agree with you on that.
Could have been avoided.
Sure,
you look at, but again, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
If, could have, should have,
but
didn't.
It takes a death to change things. It takes a death to wake up. And until you're a worker that's on a site that experiences that, like, you got to wonder how many lives were changed as a result of seeing that, let alone the individual itself hanging from that video and what that life has changed.
If the guy that was hanging on that rope is listening to this podcast, bro, I'm really happy you're alive, and I'm glad that you survived that, man, because that looked really crazy.
Yeah.
that looked really insane. But, listen, we got to try our best, right? And anybody can be in construction now. Set up a construction company cost me $250.
I want to change that statement to anybody can be good in construction now.
Well, listen, I've seen construction employers that, you know, they're not good.
No, I know.
You know, they don't
They're
care
all
about
the
their
dollar.
workers. They
Yeah, I
don't
know,
care about the
money.
quality. They just care about, you know, but these guys are scammers, sharks. You know, the same thing.
Their business.
Yeah, they go in and rip off an old lady
Yeah,
and take all their money
yeah.
so that they can do a deck that costs $75,000.
So safety is not even on their radar.
No, robbery and theft is.
And on that tone, get a hold of you again.
Yeah,
on IG, it's under my_S1.
My_S1.
Your email.
You can, our email, info@my_S1. Oh, sorry, info@my_s1s.ca. We have it up here on the board and stuff like that. Just some of the things that we do and our team does.
I love the multilingual.
Man, it comes in handy. It comes in handy.
Do you have Irish in there too? Listen, I love the Irish.
Don't
okay?
start. Now we're gonna start talking about the difference between Portuguese and then the Portuguese from the islands, Manny. We're gonna have to get a
and
separate
don't even listen.
translation
There's
just for that.
Portuguese from the islands. There's Portuguese from the continent. Then there's Portuguese in Brazil. Then there could be Portuguese from Macau. Then there's Portuguese in Africa. Listen, long time ago, I had nothing to do with it. So don't come after me for reparations. The Portuguese did do some shady thing, but it had nothing to do with my family tree. I was not a part of that.
I don't know, man.
Okay.
I don't know. All I know is that I'm proud from the family that I came from. I'm proud of the lessons I've learned from their experiences. And I'm really proud of everything they've built and everything they worked on, my parents and everything. And, you know, I'm very proud. I'm proud to be Canadian, too. I was born here and raised. And
Well, I've always said Portuguese Canadian. I've never said Canadian.
Luso
Portuguese.
Canadian.
I don't know.
I don't know, man, but I'm proud. But I'm grateful for our team and grateful for our clients and all the work that we do. I'm grateful for all those workers. And our system does a lot of this that you see in multiple languages, but mainly English. And it's really great for businesses that are starting and want to learn. But another episode.
We'll get into that,
talk
but
about
that's what
all
I
that stuff.
like. I mean, this show is primarily because I'm not in the high-rise world and the corporate world. It's mostly about, you know, single-family dwellings kind of thing, that construction world that I'm mostly, and a lot of listeners listen to this show. Even though a lot of those guys high-rise are listening to the show as well too. I'm more versed in that world, right? Those custom worlds and the one-offs, the small companies, and I'm encouraging them. I don't care if you're a one-person shop. I don't care if you're a two-person, less than 10 or less than 6 or whatever. This is important. This is critical. You should be considering all this
One
stuff.
thing's for sure, the law does not care about the size of your project.
Yeah.
What applies to a high-rise project also applies to a single
100%.
family dwelling that's being constructed. The law does not
A
care.
worker's a worker.
No, and a worker's a worker. The law does not discriminate. This worker, that worker, this type of work. No, a worker.
And then I'll start objecting when they try to change the name worker to suit the agenda.
I don't know, man.
That's a different argument,
All I
but-
know is that as an inspector, I did not care where you came from. I did not care what language you speak. To be honest with you, whether you're getting paid cash or not, none of my business. What I did care about is that you as a worker had your rights.
You were informed.
You were informed. You were trained.
Yes.
Your employer complies with the law.
Yes.
As an inspector, that's what I cared about, you know. And then you get some of these questions. Oh, but these workers and those types of work. No. Don't even pull me into that rabbit hole. I want nothing to do with it. There is no color here. There is no language. There is no sex.
A
male,
worker's a
female,
worker. Period.
whatever.
Simple.
It's a worker, and every worker has these rights.
Yep.
Whether you're an illegal worker, whether you're a migrant worker, it makes no difference. You are a worker. You are working in this province. You have rights. You have protections. And employers have duties and responsibilities, right? When you go to the hospital, we're all paying for it.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you very much.
See you on the next show, man. Appreciate it. Brady
Nice.
here. You're listening to Safety Corner, powered by TCL and S1. For workers, by workers. Online and in-person health and safety programs and training available in 10 plus languages: English, French, Portuguese, Italian, Russian, Tagalog, Turkish, Arabic, and Chinese. Reach out to them at www.mys1.ca and DM them at my_S1 for more information.